Hello everyone, this is Bob Tribe with another episode of Valley to Vietnam, and today our guest is Val Schiele. Val, welcome.
Thank you, Bob.
And Val did 2 tours with the Marine Corps in Vietnam, so I feel lucky to have him today, and he was born here in Sacramento. You were born in what hospital?
I was born at what was then known as Sutter Maternity, later became Sutter Memorial, and is now gone.
They just tore it down last year, I guess at 52nd and F.
Yeah, I think they're going to build housing there or something.
Right, that's the plan. And you lived in Oak Park.
I was raised on 43rd Street between 8th and 11th Avenue, 34, 43, 43rd Street.
And you had how many brothers and sisters?
There was 12 brothers and sisters. There was 13 of us total.
Whoa, that would make you either Catholic or Mormon.
That would be a Catholic.
Yeah, okay.
Good Catholic family. It was before TV. What else were they going to do?
Right. Yeah, well, my mother was Catholic, but we only had 2 kids. I wanted more. And as far as schools, you went to...
I started out, I did my actually kindergarten at Donner School at 8th Avenue and Stockton Boulevard, and then went to Immaculate Conception for grade school, Christian Brothers, St. Pius X Seminary, and then Sac State and UC Davis.
Okay. And the Immaculate Conception School is no longer there, correct?
Well, the school is there. I believe that it has been rented out as a charter school. It's no longer a parochial school within the Diocese of Sacramento.
Okay. I know when I was going to Catholic school, it was pretty tough. I mean, you didn't goof around in class or anything like that.
Yeah, the nuns broke my knuckles a couple of times.
But the rules, I got that. And then at Christian Brothers was infamous. A couple of my good friends were there at the same time you were, and they said those brothers.
They were pretty tough. They didn't hesitate to, if you were out of line, to take you to the gym and put you in the boxing ring, and you fought whether you wanted to or not. They put the gloves on, and if you could either choose to fight or not.
See, you can't really get away with that today, but yeah, I saw a lot of that. What did your dad do for a living?
My dad was a trucker.
Okay. So he had to be home some of the time.
Yep, he was there.
Yeah.
He had been injured critically in the early 1900s in a truck accident.
Oh.
So what they did is he continued to drive truck for several years, and then the insurance rules changed and changed and changed. So he became, that's how we came to California in 1945, before I was born. He came out here with my mother and my older siblings. And he became the terminal manager and started up the truck stop for Western Gillette Trucking.
Okay.
Which no longer exists.
And because of that injury, he probably wasn't in the military then, correct?
Yeah, he was born with a club foot, so he had never served in the service.
Okay. And places you hung out as a kid, you mentioned a few of them when we spoke earlier, like the Colonial Theater.
Oh yeah, that was a Saturday event.
Yeah.
The Colonial Theater, Ross's Sporting Goods on Stockton Boulevard across the street from the Colonial, about a block down. We used to go to Luigi's Pizza all the time. Ross Caniglia had the Leaning Tower of Pizza. We'd go there, those kinds of places.
Right. And of course, you were very close to the State Fair at the old fairgrounds.
Yes.
And I know we used to sneak through the back fence in there so we didn't have to pay.
Well, I actually had a better deal than that. My sister had a dairy farm. Sister and husband had a dairy farm out on Gerber Road, and I actually lived with them quite a bit when I was young. And they had a professional show herd of brown Swiss dairy cattle. So my job in the summertime was to take the cows, when I was young, was to take the cows from fair to fair and prepare them for exhibits. So when the state fair time came, I just lived at the state fairgrounds.
How do you prepare a cow for exhibit? Do you have to wash them?
Keep them clean, keep them well manicured and taken care of so that the people can come by and see them. You just have to take care of them properly.
You said another place that you worked as a young man was at Jew's Bean Sprout Company or something.
Yeah, I was 15 or 16 years old. It was the first pay job that I had. It was something called Jew Bean Sprout Company, and it was over on Franklin Boulevard, would have been south of Fruit Ridge Road, and it was kind of in the back of a building. And what they did is Mr. Jew, and I don't know how to spell the name, it was a Chinese name, they grew bean sprouts for all the Chinese restaurants in town.
Oh, okay.
And you grow bean sprouts in water. So my job was to take them and wash them up and clean them up and get the oak wood out of them and things like that, so you send them to the restaurants.
And how much were you making?
I was making a pretty good salary in those days. I think it was 65 cents an hour, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And do you remember the old, what did they call it? The Hall of Flowers at the State Flower?
Yes, I sure do.
I thought, I mean, to me, I still remember that for some reason, just because they'd have it real humid, and you walk in there, and it was like no other feeling that you get. You know, it was.
Well, what I really enjoyed about the state fair, besides the cattle, that was my main job at the fair. But if I didn't have to do that right at the time, I used to hawk the bee papers when I was 10 and 12 years old.
Oh yeah.
Walk around selling a bee, you know, get your Sacramento bee right here, 1 dime, 1/10 of a dollar. And you'd and stand in front of the racetrack and do that, and you could sell it because it had the forms in it all day long. You could sell lots of papers.
Yeah, so they had horse races there, and didn't they have motorcycle races too there? Or was that the old?
I don't remember the motorcycle races at
Okay.
the fairgrounds.
Yeah, well, they had racetracks over in West Sacramento, and then eventually at Cal Expo.
Cal Expo was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it had no appeal to me. So was the dairy called Gerber's Dairy?
No, it was on Gerber Road.
Okay,
Yeah, it was just it was the Lee Dairy, but it was on Gerber Road.
okay.
Gerber near Bradshaw.
Right. Now, would you go downtown at all when you were a kid?
Occasionally we'd hop on the number 5 bus and ride downtown and goof off downtown.
Yeah, I remember there was the Fox Theater, there was the Crest Theater, and there was a Hart's Cafeteria. And if we saved up enough money, we'd go there and get like a banana split or something.
Right.
You know. It was right across from the Fox Theater.
You got it.
Yeah,
Sure was.
yeah. So in 1962, at the prime age of 17, you joined the Marine Corps.
That's correct.
Now, why the Marines? Why did you join?
Well, you got to remember that I came of age during the time when all the war movies from World War II were on, and the Marines were real tough guys, and John Wayne was, you know, leading the charges, and it looked pretty appealing to me.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything special going on at the time, and I was just full of hell, in all honesty, and I just decided it was time to do something different, so I joined the Marine Corps.
And how do you get a better uniform than the Marine dress blue uniform?
You got it. You don't.
Wow. I mean, that's really nice. So you went to training at San Diego? Or?
Yeah, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego.
And,
From there, I went to Camp Pendleton for infantry training.
okay. And each of those are like 8 weeks? Or?
If I remember correctly, my MCRD time was 12 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And then if I remember correctly, infantry training was 3 months at that time.
And I think once Vietnam started, they started shortening those.
Well, I was one of the first troops committed to Vietnam after the Gulf of Tonkin. So
Okay.
I don't know what they did in those days as
So-
far as training.
But you went in 62, and before you go to Vietnam, where were you? And
Well, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton with the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, at a little base with inside Camp Pendleton called Camp Margarita is where we were. And then from there, we rotated overseas, and when we rotated, we left the 1st Marine Division, became part of the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, 3rd Marine Division.
Okay.
And we were in the Philippines at the time. We were stationed in Okinawa, but we would go on float.
Uh-huh.
We were in the Philippines at the time of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and so we immediately got sent over into the Gulf.
Right.
And from there, we floated out at sea for about 90 days. They wouldn't let us go ashore, so we floated just off the coast, ostensibly just beyond the 3-mile limit because we wanted to not invade their territory.
Right.
Until they were ready to bring us in.
And then eventually you're going to go in 64, correct?
Yeah, it was, I believe, early 64 is when I went in, or late 64, I'm sorry.
Okay, late 64.
Yeah.
And where did you land? Near Da Nang, or?
Not too far from Da Nang. I don't remember the beach that we went in on, but we were stationed out in the jungle, about 18 miles from Da Nang, in a little area of the village, if I recall correctly, was called An Hoa, and we were on a place called Hill 41.
Okay.
You know, that's
So on Hill 41, were you getting attacked?
on a daily basis.
Yeah. Mortars.
Mortars incoming, it took incoming of whatever type.
right,
you know.
artillery, whatever.
A lot of small arms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you were there then during that tour from probably late 64
Till probably October, I'm going to guess, October 65.
okay. And then you rotate back to the States, but you're still in the Marine Corps.
Yes, I rotated home. I went to Marine Corps Supply Center, Barstow, California for a couple of months. I was stationed out in the desert in Barstow. And then I didn't like that.
I wouldn't like Barstow.
No. So I said, send me back overseas. So they did.
So you volunteered to go back.
Yeah.
Would you have gone, would they have sent you back if you didn't volunteer, do you think?
Well, they couldn't send me back because according to the Marine Corps rules at the time, you had to have a year left to do in the service before you could leave the continental United States. I only had about 7 months left to do, so I just said, well, just tack an extra 6 months on, we'll go.
Okay.
So they did, and I went.
So your next tour over there is you go in late 65, right?
Right. I think around December 65, late December.
Uh-huh. And then you're going to be there how long?
Well, I was there for a year. I came home in December, just before Christmas of 66, I came home.
Wow. So which tour of those two Vietnam tours was better or worse or what?
Well, better in terms of I knew the people better than were because most of us had gone through all of our infantry training, 3-5 and then 1-9 together.
Right.
When I reformed and wanted to go back, I actually tried to go back with 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. They wouldn't let me do that because being a combat experienced NCO, I was in E4 at the time and had combat experience. They were forming up a new outfit, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and they wanted people with combat experience in there, so they transferred me to 2-3.
Okay. So was one tour, did you see more enemy action in one tour versus the other, or was it just fairly constant?
Probably saw more enemy action in the second tour, but realistically, I don't think it was a lot different. I think we stayed busy.
And did they put you out in the field most days then, or what?
We were always in the field. We did not live. I never once during my tours, either tour in Vietnam, spent any time in what we would call a rear area. We were always forward areas. The largest outfit we were with was company-sized outposts, and we would rotate from there to platoon-sized outposts, and then go on squad or fire team-sized patrols from there.
So that gives you a lot of exposure. Were you?
Oh, sure.
Were you wounded?
No, I was not. Fortunately, I did carry a little Agent Orange home with me, but other than physical wound in country, no.
Yeah. And did you lose people in your platoon?
Of course.
Yeah. I think the Marines generally had the highest casualties of anybody. And part of that was that they were always in the field.
Yeah, we were always in what would, if there was a forward area, what would be called a forward area.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you're way up north where the NVA were. They were fighting typically NVA rather than Viet Cong.
That's correct.
So they were hardcore. What is your rank when you discharged from that?
Corporal E4.
Okay.
It's funny, in the Marine Corps you had to specify Corporal E4 because in the old Corps, which is before I went in, corporals were only E3s.
Oh.
And while I was in there, they developed the rank of Lance Corporal.
Right.
And Corporal E4. So it's funny, I still to this day say Corporal E4, not a Corporal E3.
Yeah, and the Marines were the only one that used the designation Lance Corporal.
Right.
Yeah.
They did that because, as I understood, the Army, a corporal was a non-commissioned officer. And in the Marine Corps, in the old days, prior to my going in, but immediately prior, a corporal was only an E3 and therefore not an NCO.
Right.
So a corporal in the Army would outrank a corporal in the Marine Corps. They said, we got to straighten this out.
Right.
So they developed a Lance Corporal and then a Corporal E4.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you learned certain life lessons in Vietnam.
You do.
And what sort of things did you learn?
Well, you learn what's valuable in life. You learn what's important.
Like how to stay alive?
Yeah, and how not to, and realistically, I think you develop, if you don't already have it, an innate sense for what's really important and for what you can let slide.
Right.
You know, you just do. You begin to notice those things in life that, no, this has to be taken care of, and we can let this one go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you came out of the Marine Corps, what date?
December of '66. I couldn't tell you the exact date.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So before you joined the police department, what sort of things did you do?
I worked at a place called Pay and Pack Plumbing, which is over on Howe Avenue and I think pretty close to Northrop, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember that place because I lived out in that area. So, yeah. So you worked there for a while, and then in June of '68, you joined the police department.
That's correct.
Was your brother already with the department?
Yes, my brother was on the police department. He had been on for about 10 years at that time.
Oh, so where are you in the family order?
I'm number 8.
Okay, yeah. And
He's number 3.
Were you in patrol division?
Yes, I never left the patrol division.
And what areas of the city did you work?
Really, all areas. I initially was assigned to work in the Oak Park area. In those days, we worked, when things got really bad, we worked 4-man squad cars. Wow. So we'd put 4 to a car, and then if trouble was coming, we'd work, because we were having a lot of, in the late 60s, early 70s, there was a lot of civil unrest in the country.
Were you with the department when one of the officers was killed?
Bernie Bennett?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on duty that night working Oak Park.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And wasn't he driving down Broadway or something?
No, he was driving down 35th Street.
Okay.
Between 5th Avenue and 4th Avenue on 35th Street, going towards Broadway.
Okay. I never knew that. I remember that so well because...
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think they said they thought he was shot from a high window or a rooftop.
A rooftop. He was shot from a rooftop. His partner, Lloyd Smothers, who was not injured in the attack physically, of course, mentally, was very disturbed, but the blood splatter was all over it.
Oh, gosh. And what was his name again?
Lloyd Smothers. He
And
later became an FBI agent.
Okay. And the officer who was killed?
Bernie Bennett.
Marty Bennett.
Bernie. Yeah.
Okay.
Bernard.
Did they catch the guy that did it?
Well, there were 7 people put on trial for a conspiracy to commit that murder. They were all either had the charges dismissed or acquitted because quite honestly, the information they had, and probably a lot of the investigation at the time, was too intense, too fast. They had the right people. They just...
I think I remember that.
It's called the Oak Park 7.
Yeah. I'm going to look those guys up. So, do you think Vietnam made you a better police officer?
I think it made me a better police officer, and in all honesty, a better person.
Yeah.
I really do. I think, like I said a minute ago, I think you begin to develop an innate sense of what's right and wrong and what's important and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably good seasoning. I think there were a lot of guys that came back from Vietnam who became police officers.
Is that right?
Yeah. I know there was several of my friends who that was the case. So you had a position at some point in time with the police department where you represented the police officers.
Yes, I was a member of this. I was one of the founding members of the Sacramento Police Officers Association, 1968, and I later served 4 years as the president of the association. I was on the board for many, many years and was the the lead negotiator for several of the labor contracts with the city of Sacramento and the police department.
How was that process? Was it tough? I mean, it's tough, but it was pretty good, realistically. You got to remember that the labor relations process, really both sides want to make it work. yeah.
But of course it can be tough because you have your opinion and management has theirs.
And it comes down to numbers.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you left the police department in 1985.
That's correct.
Was that what was the main reason you left at that time?
Well, I had injured my leg in a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
I wasn't going to retire, but the opportunity actually opened up for me to retire, leave the police department, and open a labor relations consulting firm representing police officers throughout California and Nevada.
Oh,
So we grew and represented police officers and firefighters throughout California and Nevada. And I just made the decision that if I didn't leave then, the window would probably close. So I did it.
and someone we interviewed earlier, Bill McPoyle, later joined you, was working for you at some point, and
Yeah, Bill served on my board as when I was the president of the Police Officers Association in Sacramento. I knew Bill quite well. We worked together a lot. When he was getting ready to leave the department, I had a position available at ERS, so we hired him. And he later became a partner with us and did quite a good job.
so once he left the department and worked with you, how long did you two work together?
Probably, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years before I sold out of that business and completely retired.
Okay. And now you live up in the mountains.
Yep, I live in Georgetown, California.
Yeah. And I heard that if you were up at Apple Hill, you might run into you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've been, I carve in stone. I make signs and plaques, and I do a lot of arts and crafts shows, that sort of stuff. And I spend a lot of time at Apple Hill.
I just wanted to mention one more thing is that you had other relatives who were with the police department.
Oh yes,
Your brother was a deputy chief?
my brother retired as a deputy chief. I retired just as a patrolman. My nephew, my brother's son, 2 of them were on the department as police officers. One retired as a captain, that's Jeff. He retired as a captain on the department. Danny was the interim chief of police, and he retired and became, they both now work for the DA's office as homicide investigators. My nephew, Anthony, went on as a non-sworn CSI technician, and I believe now is one of the leads in the CSI division. I'm not exactly sure what his position is, but he's fairly well up there. Of course, we're all getting older and ready to retire, so they're retired too.
Did you mention earlier too a granddaughter or
No, my
niece? or something?
brother's granddaughter, so it would be my grandniece is on the department, Ashley.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Then I have a daughter that's just about ready to retire as a correctional officer in Folsom,
Oh, okay.
and she's been out there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And then,
That's a tough
yeah,
job.
yeah, that's a job I wouldn't care to have.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Well, Val, I think that pretty much sums up everything we wanted to discuss. I just want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming down from the hills today
Oh, no
to
problem.
do this.
Thank you very much.
For both your service in Vietnam, the Marine Corps, and with the Sacramento Police Department.
Appreciate that, Bob.
That's a good career.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I can't complain.
Well, thanks again.